Well, my name's Hammad Nasar, and I've curated this exhibition, Divided Selves, with Rosie Addenbrooke and Alice Swatton. The exhibition places us today into a society which is riven by division and asks a series of basic questions. How do we share a place and histories with people who may be different from each other? We are showing the work of 26 different artists, and together these works pose a series of questions to us. How do we make peace with often difficult histories, but not be paralyzed by them? How do we listen to and amplify voices of people that quite often have been marginalized or ignored? How do we take action? What agency do we have? Now, these are very large questions, and what we're not going to try and do is offer you a cookie-cutter solution. That's not what the exhibition is about. The exhibition is an invitation to come and join us and think with and alongside the artists and the artworks they show us to have a conversation around these questions together. This exhibition, you can sort of trace it back to Coventry being the city of culture and also hosting the Turner Prize here at the Herbert. Because one of the artists that we've invited back to be in Divided Selves is the Array Collective, who ended up winning the Turner Prize in 2021. And in fact, many of the artists in that exhibition were asking very similar types of questions around what does it mean to be a member of a community today. And for Array, they had sort of framed their contribution to the Turner Prize also in dialogue with an anniversary, 100 years of Ireland's partition. And in the gallery that we're standing in, this is how you enter the exhibition. And that gallery then frames that question, thinking about the nation as something that comes into being often through acts of violence, and frames that through different times and to different geographies. And we're standing right behind, or sort of right alongside, the Pan-African flag developed by Larry Achiampong. I think what these works then they begin to coalesce around an idea of how often nations have come out of struggles, protests, and acts of violence. But while we enter the exhibition through that framing, we leave it through quite another. That it's enough, while the violence may beget you a nation, it's never really a reliable infrastructure to keep it that way. In the work by Sophie Ernst, where she's interviewing the legendary artist Zarina, reflecting on her family and her family home, which was in pre-partition India, and where her family sort of left for Pakistan, there's a wonderful line in there which she says, "Home is about people. It's never about things." And I think there are many artists in that gallery, from Rini Matic, looking at the photographs of their friends and family in places like the Peterborough estate that they grew up, or the artist Sophia Karim, whose delicate models of quite often prisons of political prisoners in India and Bangladesh. I think what Sophia is doing in that body of work is acting as a transformer, transforming pain into hope. In the final work of the exhibition, which is a wonderful painting by Lubaina Hamid, where the artist invites us to have courage in these types of crises. I think it also ends with this reminder of our own agency in navigating our path through these times. Alongside these works, we have a couple of swings by Mona Hatoum, really wonderful, powerful work in the Herbert's collection, which are these two glass swings that are suspended from chains from the ceiling. They face each other. They're made of glass, so you can't sit on them. You'll break them. And if you could, they will collide and shatter. It's this metaphor for coexistence made flesh in the artwork itself. What you're seeing behind me are sort of 16 panels that have been fabricated by a team that usually makes wedding dresses in Karachi's. It's been made out of sequins. This is the first collaboration between an Indian and a Pakistani artist, so Nalini Malini and Iftikhar Dadi. And the red sort of line that you see that gives the piece its title, Bloodlines, is the line that actually partitioned India into the nation of India and Pakistan. So for this work to be, in a public collection in Coventry, I think it brings a lot of these things back into conversation with each other. Bloodlines faces off with Goshka Makuga's wonderful Make Tofu Not War, this sort of imagined forest scene that you look through 3D glasses. So one of the protest signs is about the nature of democracy itself. But I think it also points to the fact that as climate crisis continues, where we had war and conflict and nation building before, we will perhaps have climate cataclysm in the future. But I think the only way we can actually deal with them is at a local level, at the level of a community, of a city, of a neighborhood, of actually being able to talk with each other and to talk with people who may not hold our views. In constructing these sort of big national stories, quite often it's views of minorities that get repressed and suppressed, whether it's in the canonical work of Donald Rodney's, where he pictures John Barnes, the footballer, kicking away a banana that's being thrown at him. So I think what we were also trying to do with this exhibition is to say, let's actually sort of unpack some of these things and do that in a way which is not about pointing fingers, but actually saying, well, these are our sort of shared history. How do we sort of share the burden of that? How do we make peace with it? That without making peace with histories that you share, I think it's kind of impossible to belong.